Well, you're gonna mess it up sometimes. We all do. It's just the fact of life. And so that's why I wanted to create this video to showcase and mention some of the biggest and most common mistakes that happen when people start doing Facebook ads. So let's go in order. Number one is common sense mismatch. What does that mean? It means that what you're trying to do has a common sense failure somewhere inside of it. So that would be, for example, a mismatch between your targeting and your ad. If you're trying to offer cat food to dog lovers, it's not going to work. So that would be either wrong targeting or wrong creative, or a mismatch between what you promise in your ad and your offer on your landing page. That could be using the wrong campaign objective. That's a very common sense mismatch. You're trying to sell t-shirts and you're running the traffic objective. Well, that's not going to work. Even if, and a lot of people are going to say, but I don't have data in my pixel yet. And the experts and the gurus say that you should have at least 50 sales before you start running conversion campaigns, and so on and so on. Even a partially optimized campaign will perform better than a traffic objective or than awareness objective. So if you want to sell something, choose the right objective and tell Facebook, hey, I want to sell this. Go with the purchase objective. If your offer is too crazy, then you shouldn't be trying to sell directly, and you have one of the next mistakes that we're gonna talk about. But that common sense mismatch and all the techniques that I showed you to check your ads for common sense and your campaign settings and targeting settings and offer should all be streamlined. If they're not streamlined, if the communication between these steps does not flow perfectly and you don't have a nice experience and a nice customer journey, it's gonna fail. And the mistake that people actually do is saying to themselves, well, if we could just target the right people, we're not targeting the right people, and then if we could just find the right people, our product would sell like crazy. While at the same time, we see things like they didn't describe the product benefits, their ads are cheap and horrendous, their targeting is fine actually, maybe even, but their campaign objective is wrong. And so of course that's not going to work. Common sense. And the problem with that is that they don't teach us common sense in school. It's actually kind of hard to teach. So the way to go around that problem is to really think about the whole process. So it's never just one thing. If your campaign doesn't perform very well, it's not one thing. It's a lot of things. I realized this quite early when I was building websites about 15 years ago for people. And when I actually started analyzing why don't we get sales, I found problems everywhere. Like from the people picking up the phone to the websites, the ads, the targeting, the everything. So first, think about how that whole thing works together, because the problem is in many places. It's not in one place, right? So that's number one, common sense mismatch. This is probably the most common. The second one that I see very, very often, especially with inexperienced marketers, is to judge results too quickly and to give up too quickly. So there's a few problems here. If you launch a campaign and that campaign, you spent, let's say $10 on it and it had 20 clicks and you made a sale. Now, is that a successful campaign? No one can say. It's just too early to say. There's absolutely no statistical significance in these results. Maybe it was your grandma who bought it. Just saw your ads there and say, hey, this is my guy. I'm going to buy that. Maybe it's even just luck. You don't know at this point. So you need to let your campaigns run for a while. And another good example of that is, let's say, for example, you're selling something that costs $500. It has a $100 margin. Take a look at the margin. So you need to sell something for $100, but you've been spending $10 for 5 days. You've spent $50 in total, and you still haven't made a sale, and saying, oh, no, this is not working. While your target CPA should be $100 in the beginning. So unless you have spent these $100, and unless you find one of the previous things that we talked about, like a common sense mismatch or a common fallacy, then you should perhaps let that campaign run for another 5 days. Give it the time. And you also need to understand that Facebook does accumulate data over time. And the more pixel data you have, the more Facebook can use that pixel data to optimize your campaigns and provide better performance and get you better results. So if campaigns are not working very, very soon, they might start working later on once once they start learning. Another thing that also frequently happens when you give up too early is the fact that some people just don't buy immediately. They don't want to buy your product right away today, but you were looking at the results today. And so in 3-4 days, these people might make up their mind, come to your website and buy the product, but you already made the decision to stop the campaign. And then now, first of all, when you restart it, it's going to go through the learning phase again, which is not great, not optimal. And you will find that a few days later, maybe 2 people bought it, and now your campaign is profitable. And that happens because of the time decay. People just don't buy stuff immediately. So analyzing campaigns too quickly can be a serious issue, and that's something that I see a lot of people mess up in the beginning. Now, next is the problem, and this is one of the probably hardest mistakes to overcome because it needs a certain amount of experience, and that's kind of the over or under sophistication of your campaigns. I've seen people that make campaigns like they have a very simple product that costs like $50, and they have a 7-step marketing funnel with 7 retargeting campaigns and a bunch of other stuff. That's way too much over sophistication, while they should be focusing their entire budget on a direct-to-offer campaign or trying to sell that directly with simple conversions campaign, and maybe like spend 5-10% of that budget to do like an add to cart to remarketing campaign, and that's about it, right? That's the right level of sophistication there. Reversely, you are selling something that's super complicated, it's hard to understand, people need to make their mind about it, they need to talk to the wife, consult with the family, talk to the accountant, compare it with a bunch of other stuff, do research to understand it completely, and so on and so on. And then you expect that to work with just a simple ad and maybe a few remarketing messages. It's not going to work. You need to add the necessary sophistication. Maybe you need to break the offer into certain steps. You know, if you're going to go and buy BMW is not going to sell you the BMW without you seeing it or maybe even test driving it. Right? That's why they offer test drives. You get in, you feel it, you experience it, and now you know what you're buying. You don't completely know what you're buying because it actually starts to, break, and there's a lot of maintenance and money that you need to spend there as well. So you might know that, and you might have questions. So they need to consult you, and they need to sophisticate their sales process to the level necessary to make the campaign successful. And so probably this is something that kills many campaigns, and it's one of the hardest things to do, because you actually need to be able to figure out what's the right model, and that's very, very, very hard. Even for experienced marketers, this is one of the biggest issues in the beginning. You need to figure out the exact way to sell with the right level of sophistication, with the right breakdown of your offer, with the right customer journey, the right way to lure people into your business, to get them familiar with it, and to get them to become an advocate and maybe a customer with a very high lifetime value, right? So that's number 3, over or under sophistication. The next one is something that we talked about quite recently, and that's improper testing and scaling and improper optimization. So you already know the difference between proper testing and improper testing. Like, if you test too many things at a time, things are gonna mess up, and then you can't unwind that mess. The deed has been done, and you've changed your ad creatives, you change your landing pages, maybe you even change your URL, your entire social cloud, and all the comments, shares, and likes that you build up on your ads were changed, and like that creates that problem. That's kind of also related to judging results too quickly, making too many optimizations too quickly. You don't want to do that. You want to give them the time to breathe, so that you have statistically significant data that you can actually analyze and make decisions upon. And then, of course, you don't want to be scaling and testing at the same time. That's clearly obvious from the previous video. And you also want to test and scale at the right time. Now that you already know these, you are unlikely to make these mistakes anymore. And the last thing, that's probably one of the easiest to fix, but the one that is the hardest for people to comprehend, and that's being cheap on your creatives or your product presentation or your product or service itself or the creation of the ads, right? So in the area of presentation, you have your website and you have your ads. Now, how much money do you think BMW is going to spend on an ad to sell you a nice car? They're going to spend much more than a BMW costs to create that ad, because they're trying to sell more than one, obviously. But the point is that you just cannot be cheap on your creatives and presentation. So that means that if you have to make an ad, and what happens is you just kind of make an ad, look at it and say, that's fine, it's all right, yeah, it's good, it's good enough, it'll have to do. The difference between that approach and making a freaking awesome ad that really makes a difference and kind of impresses people and is really impactful is huge. That ad is going to get you a lot more results, and it's going to perform better. So that investment that you put into the creation of that creative is going to be paid off in terms of campaign performance efficiency, which will then allow you to scale even further. Like, if you start cheap in the beginning, you can't just scale inefficient stuff. So that point is, first of all, don't be cheap on ads. And when we talk about ads, just if you're gonna do an ad, hire a professional photographer, maybe even a professional videographer, or an influencer, or a local small influencer if you don't have that money, or hire someone that does the job well, maybe even a freelancer from Upwork. Get someone that can do it professionally. Don't do it yourself on Canva. It's just not gonna work as well as you might get it to work. That's where a lot of the problems are coming from. And especially when it comes down to websites, there's a lot of people trying to get a website for $1,000. That's your business. You're a businessman, and you just can't spend $1,000 on a website. It just doesn't work that way. If you're very low on money and you're just starting, and like $1,000 is too much money for a website, yeah, of course you're gonna do that. But then immediately once your campaign starts becoming profitable, the first thing you should do is fix these things. Improve the presentations, make an impressive website, present your product in a good light, make ads that are actually going to be efficient, and then when you make that money, invest it again in improving your products, right? Because that's what people see. People are going to see your ad creative and your landing page, your website, and they're going to get the product and touch it and use it. They're not going to see your targeting options or your campaign settings. What they're actually going to see is what you need to pay good money for. And those are really the 6 most common and most deadly mistakes when it comes to Facebook advertising. And I'll see you guys in the next video.